Ladies and gentlemen, this is Joe's Classic Video Games back with another great pinball repair video for you today. We are working on this Star Trek. Now, if you missed our first video, we did the electronics in the first video. And then if you missed our second video, we repainted the Playfield in the second video. And the second video ended with us spraying clear coat on it and getting it where it's doing its thing. And so now we are going to repair the Playfield. So we're going to put everything back on it, get it up and playing, and the coin door too. So we just did the clear coat. So now we're going to pour wax all over it. We're going to wax to get a nice shine on it. And then we're going to start repopulating the Playfield. So we figured we'd film a little video. This is the wax we use. We like this. You can use all kinds of different stuff. We like this cool California, really thick carnauba wax. Probably just because we like the way it smells. So basically you want to rub the wax on it, let it haze up where it dries a little bit, and then buff it off. And so we use a little rag to do that. And you can't put too much, so don't go crazy with it because you don't want to get it all over all your switches and everything. But you want it on thick because basically it's protecting the ball from eating through the Playfield, which is why this one was messed up in the first place. Somebody never waxed it. What were they thinking? That's horrible. So the dirt gets on the ball, and then the ball kind of grinds it through the wax, and then once it's done with that, it grinds it through the clear coat, and once it's done with that, it starts taking your paint off, which is the problem that we had. So, but we've got all the paint back, we got the clear coat back, so now we're going to wax it. So we'll get started on that and show you what we come up with. All right, so we put the wax on it. If you let the light hit it, you can see it's all kind of dull because the wax is kind of just sitting there marinating. Today's word is slather. We slathered wax all over it. I'm going to see if you can watch the shine come out. We'll try it right here. So see how that looks? So you only really can tell when the light hits it. So as you can see, it's going to shine pretty good. Do another one up here. So you can see how it really brings out the shine when you get on it. So we're going to buff the entire Playfield by hand, and we'll be back. Okay, so we got it all waxed and buffed up. It turned out pretty good. You can let the light hit it a little bit. Look at that. Woo! Can't even look at it too much. Might hurt my eyes. So you'll notice I turned it back on, and I did that with the old bulbs in it. So whenever you wax it, if you're doing a complete redo like this, whenever you wax it, leave the old bulbs in because you'll end up getting wax all over the bulbs. So we're to the point now we're going to swap some bulbs in, and we'll see what the Playfield looks like with new bulbs. Pull a couple old ones out. Once you start getting the bulbs going, it all starts coming together a little bit better. Now, you can do LEDs, of course. I'm kind of a old school guy. If you get one that wiggles, I mean it blinks a little bit, sometimes you can twist it a little bit. It'll make it better. Or sometimes you can take it out and turn it around and put it back in, and it'll make it better. If you I guess I'll show you that whenever we're under the Playfield of like why it does that, why sometimes it doesn't make a good connection. Need something to throw those in. Whoa. Well, that one didn't feel right. It's not twisting enough. Why is that? Probably because I'm trying to do everything with one hand. That got it. Now we're getting somewhere. So I always give them a little wiggle just to make sure that they're not going to do that annoying blink thing that they do. So you see this one is sunk down below the playfield. I'm not sure, that might be supposed to be like that. We'll look whenever we do the underside. Sometimes you'll have trouble getting the old one out because it needs to, when you push down on it, it'll kind of spring under the playfield a little bit where you can't really get a good twist on it. Starting to get some lights coming back. That one, whenever I twisted it, it came back on. These things get filth and corrosion and all that on them. We always go down with the original ones were 44s, which are a little brighter than these. These are 47s, which use like 25% of the, create like 25% of the heat or something like that. So if you go, and if instead of using 44s, you use 47s, it really helps you out on the heat problems, which is, you know, one of the reasons people use LEDs. The reason that I don't really like to use LEDs is because I don't like the look. They make some now. It's changed over the last few years. They make some now that look very similar to the original incandescent bulbs, so it's really not as much of a concern anymore, but out of habit, we kind of stick with what we've always done. Yeah, see, this one might be a good example. I can't really push down and twist too easily because it's pushing the socket down. I finally got it though. So sometimes you need to lean the playfield up so that you can grab the socket underneath the playfield. Starting to look a little better, right? We'll do these. You can cheat with a little shooter tip sometimes too. I don't have one of those right on me. I'll show you that some other time. Basically, you put the shooter tip around the bulb and it gives you a little, it makes it a little taller to where you got a little more to push on. Sometimes you can trudge through without it though. That one's going to give me trouble. Sometimes when you turn them underneath the playfield, the way the socket is, sometimes you'll turn the bottom of the socket and you can actually turn the wire around to where it hits something it shouldn't. So this isn't the smartest way to do it, but I'm trying to illustrate what I'm doing here with the bulbs actually on. That one I'm going to have to get underneath to grab with the other hand. But you get the point. The other thing that's worth mentioning is pop bumpers. So in these older games, they have this kind of socket which grabs a bayonet-based bulb. So the problem that you get is that the bulb gets loose in the socket. So see, you put it in, and then you have to twist it so that those bayonets are kind of in the middle. But once you do that, the bulb's a little loose. And to make it worse, even if you get it right, once the pop bumper fires a lot, it'll boom, 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 boom. You know, you start getting it. Where now the bulb don't work because it shook it. So what you need to do is you need to make that where it fits tighter. So one thing you can do is, you can't do this with the power on, because if you touch this and the bottom of the socket, you're going to short out all the bulbs on the Playfield and blow the fuse in the back box and possibly blow a diode on your power supply. So don't do it with the power on, but with the power off, you can take like a file or something and basically clean off that corrosion where the tip of the bulb is touching the bottom. You can see the little ring down there. Clean that up, get it really bright, and then you want to take something and very carefully, so you don't break the plastic, bend that little tab back up a little bit so that it's tighter, so there's less room between it and the side pieces, so that whenever you put the bulb in, it holds it a little tighter. And so between having a better connection on the bottom and having that spring piece of metal hold the bulb up a little better, you'll get where it makes a better connection. But you got to do all that with the power off. So I'll go through and replace the rest of the bulbs, and then we'll see what we got. Okay, so we've got all the bulbs on the top up and going, which gives it a nice, healthy, beautiful glow. Look at that. Look at the back box. Ah! Okay, so we pulled out of the bottom this box here that they were storing all of the extra parts in. We pulled the razor blades and stuff out of it so far. So this was all the junk in there. Lots of screws and bolts and posts and everything. So we're going to sort that out a little bit and see what we got. So we sorted it all out, and we have an entire stack of plastics that go on it. Notice the white overspray like was on the Playfield. Poor Spock. Don't worry, Spock, we're going to save you, buddy. And then this one, which I don't think goes to this machine. I might be wrong. These go under some of the plastics. The 3 pop bumper caps, but we've got the other pop bumper caps. We got new ones. This is interesting. This is a little bag with a little wooden dowel rod in it. So that's like a little goodie bag from the factory. This dowel rod, you put a little, I think I've got this right. You put a little, it had something to do with the light bulb sockets. I thought that there was a little rubber piece on the end that you use to install the bulbs, and there's a little Allen wrench in there to adjust the flippers with, and a couple of little inserts that, what do they call those? I found a few of the things for the drop targets. These little slugs kind of hold the drop targets in place, but I think the C-clips are missing. I think there's supposed to be a C-clip to the other side. Some of the little plastic nuts for the top of the plastics, but we've got those new, of course. Whole bunch of different hardware, so it ranges from little tiny screws like that, which hold on the pop bumper caps, to big screws like that, which hold in posts, to big thick screws like that, which hold in parts of the flipper. And then all the posts, one was broke in half. I don't know how that happened. Of course, all that stuff needs cleaned up really well. Some of these white posts, a bunch of the instruction cards, and a couple boxes of bulbs that don't fit it. So we got our work cut out for us, people. So I think the first thing I'll do is I'll mount these big plastics at the top arch, just because they look so cool. So, well, wait a minute. I might not be able to do that. Whenever you go through things like this, you always run into little things. So, like this ball gate here is still on the Playfield, but the one that went on this side is missing, and I didn't find it in that box. So I'm going to have to see if I got one on a parts machine somewhere that I can pull off. So I'll look for that, and then we'll do those arch plastics. Okay, so the ball gate was nowhere in the parts and was not inside the cabinet. They stole the ball gate off this machine for some reason. I don't know why they would do that. But luckily I have a Matahari Playfield that's completely destroyed with a bunch of parts on it, and it was made maybe a year and a half before this one, so all the parts are basically the same. So this came off the Matahari, screwed right on. I did find, look at this, this is sad. I found one screw and the lock washer that goes under it. That's all that's left of our ball gate. But hey, we put another one on it, no big deal. Those are actually kind of important because it keeps the ball, once you shoot the ball out of the shooter lane, it keeps the ball from going back down into the shooter lane. So we put that on there. There was a spot for two of these little posts on each side, and you could tell that they were the ones that take a screw because on the plastic there's no hole in that spot. And there were two on this side. So we cleaned those up and put them back in. And so the plastic shields mount like this. They call them, some people call them plastics, some people call them light shields. And then they take a dozen little screws that were all in the box. And I usually kind of fit them in a little bit. And then before I tighten them up, I make it where it's not, you don't want it real like snug to the edge because it'll hit whenever you pull up the playfield. So I make it in just a little bit, and then I kind of press them down before I tighten them up so that it flattens them out a little bit too. You can also flatten them out with a heat gun, which I've done on some other videos. If you look here on our channel, you'll see a video where we flatten them out with a heat gun. But that's how that's going to look. So we'll do that, and then we'll start working on this part. Alright, starting to get somewhere, people. Starting to look pretty decent. So we're now working on this little area. This is still filthy, of course. Also, I think the very tip of it's broke off there. I think that's supposed to be a little sharper. But we're going to run with it and see if it plays all right like that. I guess that would have been to stop the ball coming up here from going in there. So we'll see if it is that big of a deal. But this, it's like a big puzzle piece now. You need to kind of figure out where everything goes. So this piece, once it's cleaned, is going to go right there. And then you can see that there is room for 3 more posts right there. So if you get the plastic that goes on top, it's going to cover all that. And then that kind of shows you where you need the post to have a post that sticks through the plastic. So this one, it needs to stick through the plastic. This middle one, it doesn't. And the one on the end, it needs to stick through the plastic. So if you look real close, this one, you can see where the post was, and it just takes a wood screw because you can't see all the way through it. If you look at this one, that's actually a hole, so you need a post. And the reason they did it like that is because it's so close to the pop bumpers. If this pop bumper hits it and that's just a screw in there, this pop bumper is going to eventually wallow out that hole where it won't hold in good. So they made it a post, and it fits in a T-nut inside the that's screwed onto the back that goes through the playfield. So basically it makes it where it's more solid. So that's going to be a T-nut there. See, this is the same deal. That's going to be a post. That's going to be a wood screw. That's going to be a post. That's going to be a wood screw because they're right there by the pop bumpers. If you look down here, same thing. Post, wood screw, wood screw. And if you look on the flippers, post, wood screw, wood screw. Now, the reason those are like that is because this flipper could wham hit the ball really hard into that, and if that was just a screw, it would eventually break or wallow out the hole. So you got to be kind of careful of that while you're going through it. But it looks like this one was a post, this one was a screw, and then this one was a screw with a top on it, a stud on it, so that the plastic can fit over it. So whenever we do this one, this little light shield here, I mean the little ball deflector or whatever that is, you can see that whenever this is mounted, there needs to be a post here and a post here. So this one needs to be one of these. Alright. But this one just needs to be a little short screw to just hold that down. So it's like a big puzzle piece. Now, in the manual, a lot of times it kind of tells you what's what. So if you look in the manual, you can figure it out sometimes, or you can go online and find pictures of other people's machines and try to figure out where everything goes. On some machines, you have a problem where the posts are different heights too. On this one, they're all the same height, but on some, they'll be shorter and a little taller. So you have to figure out where the short post goes and where the tall post goes. And then, of course, after you do that, you have to figure out what kind of rubber ring goes on it. So this one's pretty easy. It's going to, and usually in the manual it'll tell you the size of the ring, so we'll look in the manual and find out. I would guess that's about a 2-inch ring, maybe 2.5 inch. But we'll go ahead and put that in, get the plastic on, jump over here to this side, put our 2 lane guides in, and the top of the playfield at least will start coming together a little bit. Okay, so we just worked down the playfield, didn't really run into any surprises. I think I've got a weird thing going on with that post. I think that's actually in the wrong spot, so I might have to mess with that a little bit. But we got all of our plastics back on. That cleaned up pretty good. Live long and prosper. He didn't really say it like that, did he? But everything is looking good. It's starting to look like a playable pinball machine again, and like if you saw in the very first video, we already got all the electronics running. But now we're to the point where we still have to put the apron on, and we're to the point where we have to work on the electronics underneath the playfield. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and pop up the hood on this sucker, and then we can look at the bottom and see what needs to be done on it next.